Hey guys, welcome back. I am Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana, and you are watching Marksman TV. Welcome back to another gun store vlog. Going to be using this vlog as an update to the industry, give you guys an idea of what's going on. Also going to make some predictions and answer a couple FAQs. Anyway, if that all sounds interesting to you, please stick around. That's coming up now. Okay guys, so my last vlog talking about where things were was probably about 2 weeks ago. Giving you an update, I am seeing a little bit of a slowing down in purchasing, although it is pretty much for the most part still in full effect. Maybe a decrease in traffic from about a couple weeks ago of about maybe 10 to 15%. So still pretty strong and definitely much higher sales volume than what we normally would see around this time during a year that has not been, replete with all this sort of panic buying and whatnot. Still seeing a huge amount of new first-time buyers coming in. Of course, again, a lot of that, has to do with how uncertain and how scared people are as things start toning down in the media with all the protests and the violence, which it is really starting to. We're, of course, starting to see a little bit less of that sort of chitter chatter about that type of stuff here in the store as well. And with that goes a decrease in the panic buying. So I think, again, what people are really coming in looking for are those handguns, those rifles, and especially that ammunition that people have been having a hard time finding. Our phone still rings off the hook every day, people looking for things we can't get, so it is pretty frustrating on the supply side of things. Of course, you're always going to be hit with a rush, and then it's going to be a lag of a couple months, maybe 4 to 6 weeks for the inventory to start picking back up. If you guys remember the timeline, we had the COVID related panic buying, everything got bought out, the supply chain was totally wiped out, and then things started to slow down and supply was just starting to catch back up when we got hit with wave number 2 due to all the protests. So I do hope that now that we are seeing a sort of a calming down of all the panic buying, we're going to start seeing manufacturing and the wholesale suppliers start to catch back up. But as of right now, things are still pretty scarce. Now, another side of this that I have not really talked a whole lot about in the past, and this has been going on since about February, March, is our used gun intake. So as you guys know, we deal heavily in used firearms. You've watched the used guns of the week videos and the weekly used gun reviews and all that sort of stuff. My locals know I usually get in a ton of used firearms. Typical intake for us, and I'm a small store, but we'll get, in a slow month, we'll get 30 to 40 used guns. In busier months, we get somewhere between 50 and 80 used guns. That's pretty normal for us. Since about March, our used gun intake has been really slow. So we've cut back anywhere from probably 50 to 60 or 70% on our used gun intake, which is really a big drastic change in the amount of people bringing in used firearms. Now, a lot of you guys who follow us on GunBroker and stuff, it's like I've hardly posted anything on GunBroker this year. Everything I get in, I just sell in the store. Just also that going along with my lack of inventory of new firearms, I'm trying to keep as much as I can in here for my local customers. So you guys have been probably noticing that trend. Now, I think that's going to come, it's sort of a cause with a lot of reasons. Is typically when we see a huge heightened demand for firearms in general, it's also going to come with a lower intake of used firearms, of course, because people tend to have a weird, you see this with the stock market a lot. It's people, when the value of things are perceived to be really high and highly desired, people tend to sort of attach themselves to that value and feel reluctant to let go of those things because they feel like, I have it, and if I let go of it, I'm not going to be able to get it again. Right now, actually, and I'm not saying this as somebody who's a gun store, I want people to sell me used guns, of course I do, but now when there is a heightened demand and the prices are higher, now is the time to sell if you have something that you might not want to hold on to. But of course, people will hold on to them, and when we get in the most used guns, it's when demand for guns is very low. And the prices for guns are very low. That's when we take in the most. So again, during those periods where I've gotten 50, 60, 70, 80 guns, it's periods usually like during the summer, stuff like that, when the demand for firearms typically, ever since especially President Trump has been elected, demand for guns has really been low. That's when we've been bringing in, or getting in a whole lot more used guns. So what I anticipate is while demand for firearms is very high, the intake of used guns is going to be low. I think that's also coupled with all of the social programs that have been going on with the what do you want to call it, the Trump money, the Trump funds that everybody has been getting, the $1,200 or $1,500, whatever that amount is, that people have been receiving. the small business loans that people have been getting, and really big business loans too, but to keep people on payrolls and stuff like that. Also, all the unemployment. People have been sitting on unemployment, taking in actually, in some cases, more from unemployment than they were getting actually due to their job. A huge reason we see people sell firearms is because they need money for expenses. With all the handouts and the unemployment, I think that has been another reason we have not seen a whole lot of used guns come in. But that money is going to start running out here pretty soon, and it'll be interesting to see as bills start coming in. There's been a lot of like rent forgiveness in different states for rent and for mortgages, and even for car payments. And that's all been deferred back, 3 to 6 months. So that's all coming up to an end of a timeline too. I think there's going to be a point in time where people are going to be more in need of money for bills and things like that. And it'll be interesting to see if we see a change in the used gun market as a result of that. If you work at or you own a gun store in a different area, please let me know if your experiences with used gun intake has been like mine. It's just been generally pretty slow. Now, don't get me wrong, we're still bringing in used guns pretty frequently, but like I said, about half as much or less than half as much as we typically do. Now, going on with some predictions, I've talked about this on my previous vlogs. I think we are in this big heightened state of demand for a long time. Typically what you see is the repercussions of people not being used to finding the things they want to find, and it tends to lead to an overbuying of things when they find it. We saw this specifically with ammunition back in 2013, 2014, when even though the natural demand for those things is calming down, the politics are calming down, people are just so used to not seeing 9mm on store shelves that when they see it, they buy it. Whether they need it or not, and if people just didn't do that, the stuff would naturally come back. So we're probably going to see that, especially with ammunition, throughout the rest of the year. Firearms as well, I think we're going to see a purchasing shift. Typically right now, it's the new buyers that we're seeing purchase firearms. I think if, as we calm down from the riots and the protesting, which we are, if a second COVID wave spikes up and there's a concern about that, of course, we're going to see new gun buyers in that market, as well as demand from that aspect ramps back up. But keep in mind, we do have an election, and the election as actually the dog and pony show, the circus, is about to begin of all the debates and everything like that. So that's been confirmed that those are going to happen. Those will be going off, and we'll really start ramping up. September, October is when we're going to be in the weeds on that, and then we're going to see the gun guys, people like me and you who are most likely watching, getting a little bit anxious about who's going to win, as the polls are currently showing Biden as a likely victor, but so they did with Hillary Clinton too. People are going to be really apprehensive in my experience. We were here during the 2016 election. The weeks leading up to that, our AR and PMags and .223 ammunition flew off the shelves. It's probably going to happen too. So like I said, it's probably going to take a good, after the election, if President Trump wins, I think everything's going to come to a grinding halt, and we'll probably see normal supply within about 6 months of the election. If Biden were to win, then we'll probably see demand continue to be pretty intense for about the next at least 2 or 3 years. And of course, anytime there were some sort of incident or tragedy that were to happen, politics would sort of spark up, and the purchasing is going to happen again. You guys all remember how that was under President Obama. We can expect to see more of that, I am sure. So those are my predictions for the next coming months and years. Frequently asked questions that I have been getting from people. Mainly I'm going to focus, even though I know many of you guys are viewers, as viewers, you guys are more in the gun community. You guys know a lot more about this type of stuff, but I have been getting a ton of questions in here, mainly locally, from first-time buyers, that will be good to address to everybody. One of the big ones, and I'm sure if you own a gun store or work at one, you get this question a billion times a day. Do you know when XYZ will be in stock? The answer to that is no. Unless it is physically on a truck or in my shopping cart with one of my distributors and on its way, I have no idea. And none of your gun dealers, none of your distributors, nobody knows when this stuff will become available. How the supply chain generally works for most stores like mine is the suppliers manufacture stuff, they ship lots of it to the wholesalers allocate those items to their sales reps, those sales reps call up their dealers like myself, and they literally, we get on the phone every day and they say, okay, today I have this gun, this gun, this gun, I have 4 boxes of this caliber, 5 boxes of this caliber, maybe a case of 12 gauge, what do you want, what do you not want? We say, okay, I'll take that gun, I'll take this gun, I'll take that gun, I'll take that ammo, I'll take all of that you have. and then 2 weeks later I'll get it. I will not remember what I got. Every day it's that way. So every day it's a handful of guns, it's a handful of ammo. I don't know what's coming in, and I'm sure the process is the same. Now, a lot of the bigger vendors, big stores might be going direct and getting more frequent shipments. That's when like a Cabela's and stuff like that knows that they get their ammo on Fridays, you know, because they're able to purchase probably direct from the manufacturer. They don't go through wholesale distribution. So it's really hard to tell when things are going to become available. So anyway, a lot of you guys probably ask that to your dealers. Don't get frustrated. We have really no idea. It's not very often that supply is this bad and backwards and backed up, and it's probably, again, going to stay this way for a while. Okay, another common question I get from you guys here on YouTube as well as my customers is, does it look like supply of things is starting to get a little bit better? Are your shipments actually having more guns in them, more boxes of ammo in them as they come in? I would say right now it's probably the opposite. Again, as we were exiting the COVID panic, it was starting to get to the point where I was getting cases of ammo instead of like boxes of ammo. It's just starting to get to that point. We were starting to get a really good variety of things like Glocks or SIGs, 365s. They even got like 5 Hellcats at once, which was crazy. So those were the indicators to me that things were really starting to come back in. When all of that happened, and this is still the case now, it's like it was worse than when the COVID panic happened. So now it's just like, you know, there's really hardly anything available again. Is it starting to get a little better? Currently, no, but again, I'm also starting to just see the buying slow down. And just like with the COVID panic, at first, you know, the buying has to calm down first before the supply on the distributor side can start to get picked back up a little bit. So there's probably going to be a 1 or 2 week lag there. My guess is in a week or two, assuming nothing else crazy happens, the supply will start ramping back up again. Now, another phenomenon I am starting to see is some of the distributors, or some of the manufacturers, are starting to sell less to distributors and are starting to sell direct to consumers. I'm seeing this with ammunition. I'm seeing this with certain manufacturers of things like AKs and ARs because they're able to, they're not selling direct to the end consumer, but they're selling direct to the dealer. So they're cutting out the wholesale. And I would actually, this could be a whole topic of its own. I actually see the wholesaler business model in the future maybe a little bit troubling, because we're starting to see, I mean, things are really starting to reshape on the distribution of this. It's like really starting to change the landscape of how all this works. And I can make a whole video on that. So I'm starting to see a lot of really weird, irreparable changes, and changes like wholesalers that are shutting down whole divisions because they're realizing that it's just as effective having their employees work from home. So it's really interesting. And I'll get into that in another video sometime if you guys want to hear about that. But I think what we're probably going to see in the next 15 to 20 years, because the gun industry, honestly, if you consider it against, I'm going off on a vein here, if you consider it against many different industries that exist, this is a very, very fragmented industry. It's just really weird. It's like we're operating like we're still in the 80s in a lot of different ways. And I think a lot of that's going to consolidate. And I think that actually because of all of this, I'm starting to see signs that that's starting to happen. So interesting there. But some of the manufacturers are now going direct to retailers. So it's, again, starting to become interesting in that regard. If they do that, will that mean that some dealers will get preferential treatment? Does that mean that some dealers will have to buy more supply of certain things like the wholesalers do? That'll be left to be determined. But I think in some regards, I'm starting to see the distribution chain heading that way. Will it stay that way under normal conditions? We'll have to tell. But I think the industry is learning a lot based on what's happening now, because the supply chain was just so not ready for everything we saw. I mean, what's going on now makes 2013 look, look like it was no big deal, because then it was just like ARs, AKs, and 5.56 ammo and 22. It's like those 4 categories you couldn't find anything else in. But if you wanted a 9mm handgun, you wanted a lever gun, you wanted a pump shotgun, you could always find that stuff. Now it's just like nothing is available. Like I can't get anything. So it's definitely crazy. It's interesting to watch, but it's crazy. One final note I'm going to leave you guys off on, and again, this is going back to the FAQs and the types of questions I get all the time and sort of reaction I get mainly from first-time buyers, is to please understand that things are, as you guys are saying, really messed up in terms of what we can get. Your dealers, people like me, we have no idea what's going on in terms of supply. So please try and be patient. People aren't trying to, your dealer is not trying to leave you out in the cold, leave you without a firearm. It's just, and I'm saying this because I had a couple come in that were upset I couldn't get something that they were looking for. We are really at the mercy of just getting what we can. We have no idea what we're going to be able to get tomorrow and what's going to come in a week. It's just really backwards right now. So try and have patience. Your suppliers, your dealers, everybody's trying to obviously sell you guns. What we're here to do, it's our business. But it's just really kind of a mess. So anyway, I think you guys get the point that that's what I'm trying to say, and that that's where the industry is. Hopefully, between now and the election, things can rebuild back up. If you are looking for things like ARs, I've still been able to get some ARs and AK type stuff. If you're looking for that stuff, you're looking for 5.56, get it before the election happens, because again, it's going to be a little crazy. If, like I said again, if Biden wins, we can expect more of this moving forward into the future. So I'll leave you guys there with that happy thought. Anyway, I am Chris with Marksman Shooting Sports in Westfield, Indiana. You are watching Marksman TV. I will see you guys next time.